There are hours in a man's life when time bends, not forward nor backward, but inward. Such a moment is now. You did not wander here by chance, nor are the longings of your heart accidental aches of a restless spirit. No, you have been led to the edge of something sacred. The veil between the seen and the unseen has grown thin, and a great mystery is waiting just beyond the threshold. Miracles, you see, are not fireworks in the sky or the cracking open of nature's laws for our amusement. They are whispers of a world we've forgotten, a language we once spoke fluently before fear made us mute. They are heaven's breath brushing against the fabric of time, and though they are mighty, they often arrive with quiet feet, disguised as moments, dressed as delays, wrapped in the ordinary. If you are waiting tonight, taking, hoping, clinging by a thread, you are not weak, you are being invited, for it is in the waiting that the soul stretches. It is in the ache that heaven carves space to pour something eternal. The delay is not a denial, the silence is not absence. The stillness is the stage on which the divine sets his most wondrous acts. But understand this, a miracle is not something merely to be received. It must be recognized. For the blind man it was the mud on his eyes, for the widow it was the last drop of oil, for the beggar at the gate it was the rising shadow of apostles passing by. For you it might be this very message. So here is the secret few dare to utter. The miracle you seek has already begun. It began when you refused to give up. It began when you prayed through tears, when you whispered hope even while doubt sat beside you like a shadow. It began when you chose to believe again. There is a door within you, fastened not with lock and key, but with fear, with shame, with wounds too ancient to name. And yet tonight there comes a knocking. Not loud, not forceful, but steady, consistent. It does not demand, it invites, for he who gives miracles will not violate the will he created. He waits to be wanted, he longs to be let in. And should you open that inner door, not with fanfare, but with the trembling turn of surrender, you will find that the miracle is not merely what he does, but who he is. He does not bring peace like a courier with a parcel. He is peace. He does not simply offer love as a token. He is love. To receive the miracle is to receive him. So tonight, as the stars take their watch and the world quiets beneath the weight of sleep, let your soul awaken. Speak aloud the ache you've silenced. Lift up the shattered hopes you've hidden. Invite the miracle. Give her to enter not just your need, but your heart, and as surely as the dawn will come, so too will the miracle. Not always as you expect, rarely as you demand, but always as you need, and when it comes you will realize it was never locked away at all. It was waiting for your heart to open and your night to listen. Miracles are not events to impress, but invitations to awaken. They are not divine performances meant to dazzle the eyes or stir fleeting emotions. Instead, they are sacred signals, quiet disruptions of the ordinary, meant to stir the heart from slumber. We often look for miracles like spectators at a theater, expecting grandeur, spectacle, or instant change. But miracles rarely dress themselves in the garments of the spectacular. They whisper rather than shout. They enter in silence rather than thunder, and they come not to entertain, but to illuminate the deeper truths hidden within our ordinary existence. To awaken is to perceive differently, to rise from the sleep of cynicism and routine, to remember that reality is not confined to what we see, touch, or measure. Awakening is the soul's return to wonder, to possibility, to the awareness that the world is soaked with the presence of the unseen. When a miracle occurs, it is not just the physical realm that shifts. The greater transformation happens within the expansion of faith, the sharpening of vision, the breaking of hardness around the heart. A miracle is not simply a change in circumstance, it is an awakening of the soul to the presence and nearness of the eternal. The human tendency is to treat miracles as currency from heaven, as answers to demands or proof of divine favor. But such thinking reduces the sacred to the mechanical. True miracles do not exist to validate our desires, but to realign our hearts. They are not God saying, "I'll fix this," but rather, "See me here." The purpose is not merely to escape suffering or resolve problems, but to be drawn closer into the mystery and majesty of the divine. A blind man receiving sight may be less miraculous than a proud man receiving humility. A body healed may be remarkable, but a heart awakened to love is the deeper miracle. Miracles find their richest soil not in crowds, but in stillness, not in triumph, but in brokenness. They come when the soul is stripped bare, when pretense has worn thin, and when a person becomes aware not just of their need, but of their inability to meet it alone. In that humbling, in that silence, a door opens. And miracles enter not through windows of demand, but through the cracks of surrender. The awakened heart is a receptive heart, a heart that can see the divine hand in a delay, the purpose in pain, the hidden mercy in the unanswered prayer. To be awakened by a miracle is to no longer crave the miraculous as a commodity. It is to desire more of the giver than the gift. It is to know that the true miracle is not in the breaking of natural laws, but in the breaking of the illusion that we are alone. The miracle calls us to open our eyes not only to what God can do, but to who He is, and in that seeing, in that sacred clarity, everything else begins to change, not because God has performed, but because He has revealed. Not because we have been impressed, but because we have been transformed. The delay in your breakthrough is not denial, it's divine preparation. What feels like silence is often the space in which God does His most hidden work. We are trained by the world to equate waiting with absence, delay with rejection, and silence with disapproval. But the divine timeline is not governed by our impatience. Heaven is not hurried. It is intentional, measured, and always on time, even when it appears late to us. The slow unfolding of a promise is not a forgotten one. It is the shaping of the soul so that the gift, when it comes, does not destroy but deepens. In every delay there is a purpose, not always visible, rarely comfortable, but always holy. When a seed is planted, it disappears into darkness. It is buried, unseen, pressed beneath the soil. To the untrained eye it looks lost, forgotten, useless. But beneath the surface, life is beginning. Roots are forming, strength is being gathered, the delay is not a void, it is a womb, and the silence is not neglect. It is incubation. In the waiting, God works not only on the outcome, but on the one who waits. He strengthens faith, purifies motives, strips away pride, and deepens dependence. We cry for the breakthrough, but are often unprepared for its weight. A door opened too soon can be a danger rather than a blessing. A promise received prematurely can crush rather than elevate. The delay is God's kindness disguised as inconvenience. The stretching of time is the stretching of character. It is in the long nights, the unanswered prayers, the lingering hopes that we are invited to trust not in the outcome, but in the one who holds it. The waiting tests not only our patience, but our perception. Will we still believe when there is no sign? Will we still worship when there is no evidence? Will we still hope when every voice says to give up? Preparation is rarely glamorous. It is hidden, mundane, often painful. The shaping of a vessel is a rough process. Clay must be molded, pressed, spun, fired, but only then can it carry what it was made for. Likewise, your soul is being fashioned to contain the very thing you have been praying for. The delay is not an obstacle to your breakthrough, it is the necessary path to make you ready for it. Every tear cried in waiting becomes the water that softens the hardened places within. Every unanswered moment becomes the chisel that sculpts endurance, humility, and resilience. The divine does not waste time. Every moment that feels stalled is in fact full of motion. You may not see it, but under the surface, beneath the emotions, behind the curtain, God is orchestrating something more profound than a mere answer. He is writing a story not of quick fixes, but of deep transformation, and you are not forgotten in the delay. You are being held, refined, and trusted with time because what is coming is worth the wait. The preparation is not punishment, but proof of purpose. What appears to be a pause is actually a progression. What you think is stillness is sacred movement. The miracle you seek begins the moment you surrender, not when circumstances change. Most believe miracles arrive with a shift in the external world, when the storm calms, when the sickness leaves, when the prison doors open. But the true beginning of a miracle is not when the wind obeys, but when the heart yields. Surrender is the doorway through which the impossible steps into the realm of the living. It is not weakness, but sacred agreement, not giving up, but giving over. To surrender is to stop striving to control what was never meant to be yours to carry, and to open your hands so that heaven can fill them. There is a mystery in surrender that few understand until they have lived through it. It feels like letting go into uncertainty, but in reality it is falling into the arms of certainty himself. As long as the soul clings to its own timeline, its own strength, its own plan, it remains closed. Closed to the deeper currents of grace, closed to the subtle invitations of God, closed to the quiet beginnings of change. But the moment surrender begins, the spiritual atmosphere shifts, not because God moves, but because we do. We move out of resistance and into alignment. We shift from demand to trust, from panic to peace, from grasping to receiving. Surrender is not a single act, but a posture, a daily decision to bow in the heart even when the mind still questions. It is saying yes when everything in you is tempted to fight for control. The miracle does not wait for the perfect environment, it waits for the prepared heart. Circumstances may still appear unchanged, but the soul that surrenders begins to live differently. It prays with expectation, it breathes with calm, it sees with clearer eyes. The miracle starts to rise not from outside pressures, but from the inside out. Hope takes root. Faith begins to bloom again, not because all is fixed, but because all is trusted. Many delay their miracle by insisting it must come a certain way, in a certain time, with certain signs. But heaven rarely bows to human scripts. The divine path is too vast to be confined by our expectations. Surrender tears up the script and hands God the pen. It says, "Not my will but yours, not my way but yours, not my strength but yours." That is where the true miracle begins, not in the fixing of the problem, but in the forming of the soul. Not in the arrival of the answer, but in the awakening of trust. The miracle you seek may be wrapped in the very moment you lay down your need to control the outcome, and instead lift your eyes to the one who holds all outcomes in his hand. It is in surrender that we become available to be led, to be comforted, to be changed. The posture of surrender is not passive. It is deeply active, fiercely intentional. It requires more strength to release than to grip. It takes courage to bow, but the soul that bows becomes the vessel that receives, and the miracle begins not with thunder, but with that quiet inward yes. That yes is the spark, the turning point, the seed from which the impossible begins to grow.